Hello and welcome everyone to today's IFSEC Global webinar, where amongst other topics, we'll be discussing how the cloud is enabling physical security teams to simplify and accelerate their digital offerings. Thank you to today's webinar sponsor, Cisco Meraki. I'm James Moore, editor of IFSEC Global, and I'll be moderating today's session, as we hear from two experts in the field who will also be on hand to answer any questions you may have. Digital transformation of security operations continues to evolve, and those who had it in their long-term strategies are really now beginning to accelerate their plans, I think. While transforming a security infrastructure into a digital-first model may seem daunting, it doesn't really need to be, as we'll hear from our two panelists today. And they'll explain how a cloud-first platform can support organizations in deploying and integrating new technologies such as AI, the IoT, and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. The two will also discuss how organizations can be more proactive while maximizing the value of their physical security investment with the help of automation, analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., all to help derive additional business insights and value within a modern security solution. Now, just a few things to note before we get started. This webinar is designed to be interactive, so please do ask any questions you have and would like answered by panelists in the Q&A box. We've got some presentations and discussion ready to start with, but there's plenty of time left at the end for audience questions. And if you could please make it clear if the question is directed at a specific panelist, just so I know who to ask. That's super useful. The dock of widgets at the bottom of your screen will also allow you to learn about today's speakers, download resources, share this webinar via social media outlets, and ask for any technical assistance should you need it. And if you'd like to watch the webinar back or you have any internet issues during the session, don't worry, this is being recorded and will be available to watch back on demand. And as far as an agenda goes, we'll firstly be hearing from two experts in the field. Joe Weiss is the worldwide sales leader for Cisco Meraki smart cameras and sensors, specializing in machine learning, artificial intelligence, computer vision, video analytics, sensors, and physical security. And we'll also hear from Miranda, Dyer, who leads the global alliance between Cogniac and Cisco Meraki as a strategic partner manager at Cogniac. Apology, guys, if those names are all okay. We will then move on to the Q&A section. We have a few discussion points already in the plan, but we would welcome your own questions and audience participation at this point. Please just type your question in and who it's directed at into the Q&A box on your screen, and it will come through to us. Please keep them as relevant to the discussion as you can, of course. So, without wanting to hold the webinar up any longer, I'll pass over to Joe and Miranda for their presentation. Guys, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for coming today. I know you had lots of things that you could be doing on a Tuesday afternoon or morning, and you're here with us. And I am so excited to share some of what we've been up to at Cisco Meraki and Cogniac. So as a way of an overview, today we're going to talk a little bit about who Meraki is, what we do, and why we got into this. We'll talk a little bit about the innovation that we deliver today, why we believe an open platform and an ecosystem of solutions is the path forward for our customers, and how you drive more value out of a smart camera platform than just the physical security outcomes so that you can be a bigger stakeholder in the business. We'll start today talking about the MV smart cameras. And for those of you that don't know about what we build at Meraki, what makes our smart cameras special, well, we start from the fact that when you plug them in, they work. And I know that might sound trivial or might sound a little bit top level, but the reality is we've designed these cameras to work when you plug them in. So they have their compute and their storage in the camera. What that means is that when they're recording video, it's all staying in the camera at the far edge of the network instead of trying to shift it to a box or a DVR or an NVR that limits your ability to scale. And the great thing is when you want to go from, say, 32 to 33 cameras or 128 to 129, you don't have to buy another box or another thing to be able to manage that infrastructure. The Meraki cameras are entirely managed centrally from the cloud, meaning that you can manage a fleet of thousands or tens of thousands of cameras across one site or hundreds of sites, all in the same easy-to-use, simplified way that we've been delivering value for our customers for years. There's a few key points to talk about when people think about Meraki smart cameras. The first is their scalability. Because you don't need to invest in edge compute, storage, servers, all of these things at your premises, it means that you can scale them. When you have a temporary site that you need to deploy security for, like a pop-up store or a new office space that needs to be secured, you don't have to figure out how you get that video connected to a DVR. You just have to connect the cameras to the network or to the internet, and off you go. It means that you don't have to think about how much storage do you need? What happens when you exceed that? What if you need to store 31 days instead of 28? Are you going to have the ability to do that? All of these things are simple and easy to do with the scale of the Meraki cloud. Again, no DVRs, no NVRs, your VMS lives in the cloud, and it all works in a simple, modern browser. Now, one of the areas that we really invest in is cybersecurity. At Cisco, we're the fourth largest cybersecurity institution in the world. There are three larger than us, and they are all nation states. And I'm sure you can figure out which countries those are. But we have to do things differently because of our expertise and experience. And more importantly, the expectations our customers have when they buy devices from Cisco. So we have a hardware trust anchor on each of the cameras. That means that when you download firmware from the Meraki cloud to get the latest and greatest features and capability, we sign that firmware at Cisco, and that's validated by that hardware key on the camera. All the video, of course, is encrypted end to end. All of the updates are delivered seamlessly in zero-touch provision from the Meraki cloud. And all of the user accounts, well, we leverage single sign-on and robust Active Directory integration. So no longer will you walk into your back room and see a sticker on a monitor that says username, password, or username, admin, password, password. All of this is designed for solving modern problems, a modern architecture to solve these modern problems. And of course, things like you would expect here, like agile access, the ability to access the camera system from your mobile device, from a tablet, from a PC, from a Mac. It doesn't matter. There's no specialty software you need to install. You can get access to the content you need from wherever you're at with secure authentication, including two-factor. And the piece we'll spend a lot of time talking about is the edge intelligence, the smartness, if you may, inside the Meraki cameras. And we'll talk a little bit with our partner Cogniac about how they take that intelligence and they turn it into a computer vision sensor. So with that, I'm going to have Miranda just come on and talk a little bit about what Cogniac has been up to, what makes Cogniac special, and then we'll talk about some use cases and outcomes.
All right, thanks, Joe. Hi, everyone. Miranda. We may have met at IFSEC. If not, we have a video on LinkedIn showing our demo of where we created a model the night before IFSEC started to detect different quality street cameras. And we taught the system using just a few images, all 11 flavors of quality street candies. And we ran the model on the Meraki camera as the edge device. We're Cogniac, and the name Cogniac comes from the word cognitive, and ENIAC is in the first programmable computer. And we are an AI platform used to automate visual inspection tasks. So essentially everything that Joe talked about, we can orchestrate at scale and deploy models to multiple sites, and we allow non-technical users to build and train custom computer vision models. And this is huge because if you're familiar with computer vision, I know this is very security based. However, we can teach the system and turn the camera into a sensor and enable you to, teach the system what your uniforms look like on site or a high value asset that you want to know if it's been moved. And these are just some examples, and any examples that you may see of Cogniac we may talk about today, think of it as an asset in your environment that you're trying to manage. And we do this by removing edge appliances and traditional computer vision and running our model on the Meraki camera, and we can deploy the same model at multiple sites. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'm sure we'll have more discussion about what we do. But yeah, definitely check out the video on our LinkedIn from IFSEC to see how we can detect the different types of candies and think of that as an asset in your environment.
Thanks, Miranda. And we'll definitely pick up a bit more on the Cogniac product line in just a bit. One of the things that Miranda hit on was how does this bolster physical security? one of my customers has a real challenge with tailgating, but they have different types of employees in their facility. Some are allowed in secure areas and they've got appropriate PPE and uniform for that, and others will just be having a chat and follow in. And historically, they've had a really hard time delineating between the two because their previous legacy security system only knew that there was a person there. And unfortunately, that's not enough information. It just gives too many false positives. So with the Cogniac platform, any subject matter expert that knows what that uniform or high-vis vest should look like can annotate that with as little as 50 images. They can have that computer vision model running on the Meraki smart camera. Think about that capability. Imagine being able to go back to your business and say, anything that we pay a person to monitor or count, we can now train a camera to do that. And what makes it great is that that camera doesn't sleep. It just keeps on working. And that, for me, really starts to solve some core problems that my customers continue to have. And that leads you to prepare for the unexpected, right? When the business comes to you and asks you to solve challenging problems in your environment, how do you react? How do you have the tools at your disposal to be able to do things like understand PPU usage or how people are flowing or objects in your environment? This becomes critically important, and the infrastructure that we've built, the cloud architecture, makes this possible. And for us, it's about new business needs. With hybrid work transforming what people need out of an office space, digital transformation is at the top of everyone's list. How do I do more with less? How do I use the system that I'm going to put in for safety and security to drive business intelligence? How do we simplify all of this? How many of you out there have hundreds of sites or dozens of sites with different camera systems, different servers, different software? Simplifying all of this allows you to tap into the power of what you can do with the cloud. And when you leverage powerful technology like smart cameras, well, you can help your customers, your business stakeholders focus on their mission. I'm sure nobody got into this space to update firmware on cameras, but that seems to be all that my customers are doing these days. And we help them step away from that, break fix, day in and day out, and now start to think about how do I do more within my business. But the challenges will keep coming. As more and more people hear about computer vision and AI, it just becomes this like plaster you put over everything. Well, there's a problem here, just get a little AI for it. And that's not really how this works. Typically and traditionally, as Miranda pointed out, this is a really complicated solution. You would need data scientists, you would need computer vision engineers, you would need very specialty resources to be able to do this sort of thing, but not anymore. At Meraki and Cogniac, we've simplified this powerful technology, and that means that you guys can do this today. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the use cases, some of the best technology that we've built together. But for us, it's about driving insights from the physical world in the digital world. One of my customers here in the UK is massive in the rail industry, and they have needs like detecting luggage going on escalators. They have needs like understanding people at the end of a platform, understanding how many people are flowing in a zone in a station. And these were really complicated for them to drive. You see, they had cameras, but those cameras were largely analog. They looked at technology like LiDAR, but it was too complicated and too expensive. And then when they saw that they could turn a Meraki smart camera into a sensor that could detect the objects that were important to them, and that they could teach the camera what a piece of luggage looks like, what a left bag looks like, and that camera could identify that in real time, that is a game changer for every one of our customers. And it's not just luggage or bags, it's pallets in warehouses, it's people moving through a facility, it's vehicles doing number plate recognition and optical character recognition in shipping containers. This whole world is underpinned by technology that unfortunately has been past its prime, and new technology coming to bear, well, now it can do so much more. Now, it's not easy. For anyone that's in this space who's been working on camera systems or video analytics for years, will tell you how complicated computer vision is. They will say the same things. Every camera you deploy needs more training. And that's true. Every time you put a new camera up, it's going to have a different angle. It's going to have a different field of view. It's going to be looking at something different. And you're going to need to retrain that camera. That's really complicated. And it's really hard if you have to do that on an edge compute device and manage lots of stuff everywhere. Video is a great source of information, but it's so hard to use with the current architectures of today. All this heavy-duty infrastructure makes it really hard to scale. One of my customers was trying to do a computer vision project in their machinery, trying to look at their lines, and when the line stops, understand why it stopped. And it was possible. They got it working on one line in one facility with a server and some cheap cameras from another vendor. And then they tried to do it on a second line. And what they realized is that they had to basically do all of the same thing all over again. And it meant doing it over and over on every line. And they've got thousands of lines. They don't have the people, the resources, or the ability to do that. But Cogniac and Meraki make it simple. You see, they can train that model in the Cogniac cloud, push it to the Meraki camera natively because the platforms are interconnected, and then have that tight feedback loop. So after that model goes on, within just a few hours, now that Meraki camera, instead of knowing what a person looks like or a vehicle looks like, now it knows what that manufacturing line looks like. And instead of them taking days, weeks, or months to be able to deploy this, now they can do it in hours. And this is any customer that's trying to solve these types of problems. And as you guys are probably aware, like I've talked a lot about different spaces. And each space is going to have a different concern. In the office space, my users are concerned about, are there enough desks available? Do I have the right retail, or do I have the right square footage? Is my building oversized? Are there places in the office nobody uses that are wasted? Like, how do you get answers to these questions? And traditionally, you'd have someone on a clipboard taking notes and hopefully catching viable information. But that's not scalable. And so our smart cameras do things like desk detection out of the box. We have a computer vision model for that. So you can detect if people are at desks or not. Not in a creepy way where you're using facial recognition to know that it's Joe at his desk, but in a completely anonymized, GDPR-friendly way where the camera knows there's a person there but has no idea who that person is. And so we start to see really great use cases in office spaces. When we talk about commercial or public spaces, for those areas, it's about flow of people, how long they dwell, where they dwell. When we talk about retailers, the analytics retailers are looking for are maybe a little different. Like they're looking for how many people came in the door. What are my areas of the store that are hot and cold? Can I tell the difference between staff and non-staff? The answer is you can. It just requires a little bit of training. And more importantly, some of these outcomes start there, and then they gain steam because people start to see what you can do with computer vision, and they want to be able to do more. It's like seeing fire for the first time when you build your first computer vision model and you're running it at the edge in the Meraki camera. But the priorities for our business customers are shifting. Physical security is becoming of greater strategic importance to organizations. And what's happening is, instead of there just being a physical security team that reports into the facilities team, that reports into the head of facilities, we're actually starting to see security come together as a single business unit, where cybersecurity and physical security go hand in hand. Because this type of physical security technology is now delivering far more value, and it lives on the network. When it lives on the network, cybersecurity becomes so important. You can't just put stuff on your network alongside your other trusted devices that will create risk in your environment. And so the importance of monitoring and managing this equipment is so critical. And the responsibilities of what these systems deliver is expanding. I mean, a few years ago, the mere concept that you could have thermal imaging cameras in an office doing temperature detection would be so outlandish that no one would believe you. And yet FLIR is doing that today, right? The responsibilities of what camera systems deliver from an occupancy, from an environmental monitoring, from a usage of space, well, it's all changing and expanding. And as new problems come to bear, technology has to be flexible enough to change with the needs of the time. So what if we were able to help you guys, partners and customers, not be restricted by your camera's solutions, to be able to build what you need to detect the objects that are unique to your organization. If you're a retailer and you only care about green shopping trolleys, we would have told you 6 months ago, I'm sorry, we don't have a solution for you. But now, your Meraki camera can detect and track those green shopping trolleys in real time. And you can utilize your existing Meraki cameras to do new things. So if you already have an install base of Meraki cameras, now they can do more. This is the best part about a cloud-connected solution. When you invest in a traditional on-premise solution, it just gets worse over time. The hard drives degrade, software goes out of date, maybe it doesn't get a latest update or patch, but Meraki cameras are evergreen. You plug them in and they work, and they're the worst they are the day you put them in. Over time, they get new features, new capabilities, and as this comes on, you can do new things you've never been able to do before. They can solve unique challenges. We think about this as a cloud-first platform for video intelligence, getting rid of the on-premise devices and solutions of the past and making it simple and easy for our customers and partners to scale. But it's not just cameras and sensors at Meraki. We started and cut our teeth in on the networking space. We like to say that the product that people buy is actually the Meraki dashboard, the orchestration, the ability to scale, the ability to leverage all of these powerful devices and a host of open APIs to be able to not just use the Meraki platform, but connect it into other business intelligence applications like SAP or ServiceNow, so that when your camera picks up an anomaly, a defect, an alert, it connects into that IT system. So you can get that report, you can get that notification, and you can get that help immediately when you need it. And it's not just cameras. We make a full range of Meraki sensors as well. And what makes those special is they automatically connect to the Meraki camera or access point nearest to them with the push of a button. So think about this. Have you ever rolled out sensors in your business or in a customer's premises and realized how complicated things were? You probably needed Bluetooth dongles, wireless LAN controllers, a controller for the sensors. And before you knew it, you needed a whole team just to manage the sensors in your building. Wouldn't it be better if you could just, I don't know, take them out of the box, push a button, and they would just give you data in the cloud, and then you could tie that into your other systems? You see, that's how we think about things at Meraki. Make it simple, make it secure, so that you can scale thousands of devices quickly. And for my physical security partners, you're going to be so excited to see the range of sensors. Of course, we have a door open close sensor, but we also have just released an air quality sensor and a push button for automation. So think about those times in your business where you needed a button to be able to call for help. Or today, something as simple as the coffee machine wasn't working in the office, and I had to log on to the ServiceNow platform, create a ticket on my phone, and then maybe it gets action. But I could have just as easily pushed a button on the coffee machine, and it created the ticket for me, and someone came and fixed it. And I would be even happier because I wouldn't have had to go through that process of logging a ticket. This, for me, is about how you make sensors and cameras work together. And of course, they do in the Meraki platform. And that technology where sensors and cameras are tied together, you're going to love this industry buzzword. It is called sensor fusion. And that is fusing video analytics and sensor information together. And that's what we do at Cisco Meraki. Now, a lot of people will talk about the Cisco Meraki platform being closed, and it's not really open for others to be able to leverage. And that just couldn't be further from the truth. We have an absolutely open, scalable platform where you always have access to the live video streams from your Meraki cameras. So if you need to send them to a server, if you have a Milestone or a Genetec system and you want to send that video stream to it because you're not ready to rip and replace everything, that's fine. No problem at all. The only thing we won't accept is third-party cameras into our video management system. And that's for good reason. We don't trust them. We do an awful lot to make sure our Meraki smart cameras are secure out of the box. And we can't posture and trust third-party devices in the same way that we do ours. So with more than 10 million devices connected to the Meraki cloud, we can't risk our reputation by connecting a third-party camera that opens a back door into that infrastructure. So we only leverage the Meraki cameras in the video management system, but you always have access to extract all of the data out of it that you need. We make it really easy to address new needs with new technology. So some of our customers that needed refrigeration monitoring, we came out with a refrigeration monitoring sensor. And that just happened. And then like manna from heaven, when they had that Meraki wireless network, they were able to monitor the refrigeration temperature. And I know that doesn't sound like a very compelling use case, but when you're probing refrigerators 4 times a day and paying quite a bit of labor across thousands of locations, it becomes really, really expensive and complicated from a regulatory compliance standpoint. Now, if you're thinking about like what a single camera covers when you're looking at identifying a person on a desk, it really depends on the height of the camera, right? It can only see what a person could see at that height. And so if your ceiling is 10 feet or 12 feet or 16 feet or 20 feet, it makes a big difference in what the camera's field of view is. But typically a fisheye camera covers between 6 and 8 desks. Thanks for the question. Now, how do we do all this? How does this magic actually work? Well, we had to create this new architecture I spoke about earlier with everything in the box. Doing this 10 years ago, it just wasn't possible. Not in the way that we've architected today. All of the cameras have their compute and storage in the camera, and if you need to view video locally over your network, we stream it over the local area network. So you don't consume any additional WAN bandwidth. And if you do need to view it remotely, it's not a problem at all. We'll create a secure tunnel from that endpoint all the way through to the camera, and you can view it from anywhere in any modern browser with no specialty software, no third-party plugins, no Java, no Flash, just right here in your Chrome, Safari, Edge browser, or on your mobile device. And all of this video and all the analytics are processed in the camera. Think about what that means for your ability to scale. No longer are you dependent on another server that you have to feed in water, but you can scale horizontally with these cameras. The architecture truly makes this solution possible. And of course, it's easy to deploy. This is our real secret weapon. One of my customers here in the UK is a busing company. And there was 2 things they needed to deploy. They had to do a bus station full of cameras for safety and security, and they needed to deploy number plate recognition. Now, both of these have been really complicated for them. The last time they deployed one of their bus stations with a competitor's on-premise solution, it took them between 5 and 6 months to deploy. They were able to deploy their full station of Meraki cameras in 2 days. It took them longer to wire everything than it did to plug them all in because they didn't have to think about how do I get all the video everywhere that it needs to go. Everything processed in the edge means that it's simple and easy. And one of the biggest values for them was they could easily integrate the camera's data stream with Plate Recognizer, one of our ecosystem partners that does OCR and number plate recognition on the Meraki smart cameras. So when they needed to turn that on as a service, they were able to add that feature in 3 minutes, plug their API key into Plate Recognizer, and they immediately started doing number plate recognition. This is about agility. Being able to answer the problems that the business has with solutions that are available and easy to integrate and won't take you a fortune or data scientists to do so. And for us, this is about smarter workspaces. This is where we'll enter our Q&A session and a little bit more of a panel discussion, where we chat about hybrid work and some of the outcomes and use cases, and a few other things that are important to our customers every day. So please continue to submit your questions in the Q&A box for this as we go through. But I know that the team has prepared a few just to get the conversation started. When we think about the future, though, hybrid work is here to stay. Working from home, working in the office, that's going to continue to be a trend that we see for years to come. And smarter video surveillance helps enable those experiences with seamless workflows. Real quick question came across. What's the failure rate for these cameras? I love this question. You see, because traditional cameras, they fail quite a bit. But our Meraki cameras, we had originally specified that we expected between a 1% and 2% failure rate on all of our cameras over the course of 5 years. We had a warranty in place to cover them, because all of our Meraki smart cameras come with that 5-year warranty. But what ended up happening was that we found that less than 0.25% of all of the cameras that we have in the wild and deployed for the last 5 years have had any kind of failure whatsoever, requiring a replacement. It's the lowest of any of the products we have at Meraki, because at Cisco, we have to build these products given our reputation, given what customers expect, which means they have to be really reliable. People have Cisco switches that they haven't replaced for 20 years. They have to be really secure, because nobody ever got fired for buying Cisco, right? When people look at this technology, they know that it's secure when they see it at Cisco, and it has to be scalable. Working with some of the largest companies in the world, this technology has to be able to scale to thousands of sites, to hundreds of thousands of cameras. So with that, we'll open it up to questions, and we'll chat through. I think James had a couple questions.
Yeah, thanks for that, Joe and Miranda. Super interesting, and yeah, I think some of the points made about surveillance and just generally physical security systems being used outside of just the security sphere now is something that we're seeing a lot from some of the reports we're doing. Yeah, a couple of questions at this point for both of you, and I'll start with Joe and then move on to Miranda. But what are Meraki and Cogniac hearing from customers as they prepare for or try to adapt to the new hybrid world, for example?
Yeah, the first thing we hear about is we don't even know where to begin, right? We have all of these office spaces. We've been spending money for years keeping them furnished and keeping the lights on. Now people are kind of coming back to work. How can you help us understand these physical spaces has really been the key. And how can you help me make sure that they're safe from an employee standpoint? So things like, we've invested in air quality monitoring. So we have an air quality sensor that pairs to that Meraki smart camera. Now you can deliver an air quality level in conference rooms and office spaces. And that's not something that we had even considered before the pandemic that was going to be a need. But now it's absolutely everywhere. Every classroom, every school we work on, this is the hot button. So things like that, technology that we build that helps support some of the use cases that customers want now. And more importantly, as we continue to evolve the product line, we listen to our customers and partners' feedback. It turns out we build the stuff that they need. So desk occupancy and desk detection wasn't a feature that we had a year ago, but we built it. And why did we build it? Because customers need to figure out the occupancy in their spaces. So I think that as we evolve in hybrid work, there really isn't a company that's closer to this. I mean, when you start to think about Cisco as a whole, from our telepresence and WebEx suite of video conferencing tools to our remote worker solutions like AnyConnect and Secure Connect, which probably all of us have touched or used at some point, Cisco is cut across the entirety of the office space from infrastructure to outcomes. And so how I look at this is, there isn't a company to partner with that is better positioned than Cisco to deliver hybrid work outcomes.
Thanks, Joe. And Miranda, from the Cogniac side, what would your answer be?
Yeah, I would add that, today, anywhere where a task is manual or tedious or repetitive, or you maybe have a human sitting behind a screen, looking at footage, we can help staff that with automating visual inspection. And our system runs 24 hours. It's always trying to build a better model. And because, it's all in the cloud running on the Meraki camera as the edge device, we can deploy this at scale. And that's really the value of partnering with Meraki, because it removes extra edge hardware on site, and we're able to deploy to multiple sites to really help customers see the value and time to value quicker. So when they make the decision that computer vision and using a camera as a sensor to understand images that they're already collecting today, if they're using a Meraki camera, if they're looking to update for the reasons that Joe shared with us, it's taking that camera and understanding their environment where maybe they would have been staffing or maybe have trouble staffing, or there's areas they haven't been able to secure in the past. So that's really the value that we see here.
One of the other things to touch on, I'd say real quick on the Cogniac thing, we had a customer come up today and they have a challenge with furniture being removed from conference rooms. They have shared workspaces with other tenants in the building. And they also wanted to know occupancy, and they also wanted to measure the snack bar in the conference room. These are 3 different outcomes that they need to deliver in a conference room environment where they've never had a physical security camera before. But times are changing. And so for them, they looked at this Meraki camera and they're like, this is a force multiplier for my business, because I can teach it what a person looks like, so I know how many people are in the room. I can teach it what the chairs look like, so I know if they're being removed from this boundary. And then I can teach it what this shelf of products over here on the right-hand side of the camera's field of view looks like. So when someone removes one, I can bill them for that time. Like, these are new use cases that we hadn't even thought of, but like our customers and our partners are struggling with these today. It was funny when we started talking to them about Meraki cameras. The first thing they said was like, no way, we can't put a camera in every conference room. That's going to be too expensive to solve one problem. And they were right. It is too expensive to solve one problem, like how many people are in the space. But as soon as they started to layer on the other things that they wanted to do in that environment, the things they needed to count and detect, now with 3 different business cases, one being revenue driving, one being customer loyalty, and the other being safety and security, well, now that solution is palatable, it's well more affordable, and actually it drives revenue. So they looked at what the revenue that this camera could generate over the course of a year. What they found was running Cogniac and Meraki, even after paying for all the development and services, if they scale this out, within 6 months, that camera has paid for itself, and now it's a revenue-driving tool for their business. It's just a whole different way to think about physical security outcomes, right? It doesn't have to be one-trick pony now. You can do so much more.
Yeah, and that's something again we're seeing. It's almost getting that moving away from security being a kind of sort of grudge purchase to it moving into that world where you're actually delivering genuine ROI whilst getting all the security benefits at the same time. And are there more challenges, I guess, when moving to this hybrid world? Are there more challenges for those who are working with the cloud or who aren't working with the cloud at this current time?
Yeah, I think the real challenge in not working with a cloud-based solution is the ability to execute and scale. If you've got to go to site, if you've got to feed and water a server, if you've got to drive to get video, which is unfortunately the case for many of my large enterprise customers, on a plane, in a car, on a train with a flash drive or a stack of DVDs, what can you really solve with that? Not very much. And so having all of this ability to connect to the cloud just means you can deliver more value. I'm sure Miranda had something to talk to about this as well.
Yeah, being able to capture the images, we use the Meraki Snapshot API to build and train models. What we're actually able to do is to collect images across multiple sites to build a better model that will use real life imagery across different lighting, camera height to identify assets. And what that enables our customers to do that have a lot of sites or maybe, different orientation of lighting, positioning of the camera is really teach the system using a variation, because what our system doesn't need, it doesn't need a bunch of static images of a phone in the same position. What it likes is to learn from labeling, and we only need about 50 labels to build and train a model. And we get about 95 to 99% model accuracy. We can get 100, but then we can't train it any further. The system will say, we've done our job here. But what we're able to do is by collecting images across multiple sites using the cloud and the Snapshot API is build a stronger model. And we actually pull multiple neural networks and able to do this. And they're competing to always build a better model. And we wouldn't be able to do this without, our cloud platform. And the way that we do this is much more advanced than traditional computer vision, which likes a static image and is not scalable and needs the same environment to perform.
So I think the short answer to your question is cloud is critical. But as we shift from hybrid work to outside of the office, right? What can we do in warehousing? What can we do in safety and security and with productivity? And this is an area where warehousing, logistics, and health and safety have been core tenets of what we've been doing with Cogniac and Meraki. I won't steal all Miranda's thunder because she'll talk a little bit about pallet detection and counting and identifying those types of objects. But the reality is, it's not just for a warehouse, right? One of my largest customers globally is in the rail industry, right? Rail is heavily prone to safety and security incidents. They have specific requirements on line crossings and PPE, and it's so difficult to enforce. In fact, I was talking to one large rail company yesterday, and at an average station, they'll spend more than £1 million a year in labor costs reviewing video, looking at 500 plus cameras. That's 2 people every shift, every hour, looking at cameras. And I asked him, I said, how effective is that? What do you think your catch rate of like things that you need to counter identify is? And he's like, after about 20 minutes, it's about 3% effective. It's security theater most of the time because people lose interest and focus, especially when you give them an awful lot to look at. And so for us, it's about like, how do we deliver that safety and security outcomes in these types of environments using AI and making the cameras smarter? So in rail, and I'll give rail example first, and then I'll let Miranda talk about warehousing. In rail, we're doing things like the right PPE detection. Don't know if you guys know it or not, but different parts of the rail industry, different lines have different PPE requirements, and that signifies what that person is there to do. So if you have someone show up in an orange PPE versus yellow PPE, it means something very different. And identifying that and that they're wearing the correct PPE in the correct area can save lives. Simple as that. And that's really what we're here to help with. Not build, life-saving tools, but build solutions so that our customers can prevent accidents. They can ensure that when someone is having a bad day, they get help from staff. They can understand and identify when luggage is being put on an escalator, on a lift, so that they know if it's a safety and security risk. And they can do all of this without those data scientists. Every day, I think my guy over in the rail team calls me up with a new use case. He's like, Joe, I got this train station. They've got a bird problem. Can we detect these types of birds? And I'm like, well, can you see these birds? And he's like, well, yes, I can see them. I'm like, great, so can a camera. And so, yeah, of course we can train the camera to count those birds and identify when they're in this area. But it's just like that. Like anytime you're starting to pay people or have issues where you need to countermeasure, well, we can solve that problem with modern technology. Miranda, I'll pass it to you to talk a little bit about warehousing.
Yeah, no, rail, every vertical we look at, there's infinite use cases. And it's really just understanding, where you can't, manage assets or where you're spending a lot of money, where it should be simpler. For warehousing, there's a number of use cases. Pallets are a really big one. Where are pallets? When do we need another truck to come pick up these pallets, for goods out? We can also use our optical character recognition application to track pallets across warehouses to identify in real time where they are, and also identify when a shipment has arrived. So by identifying different trucks and telling the system an area of interest on a vehicle that may refer to a shipment that should be arriving to a warehouse, there's infinite use cases in the warehouse and manufacturing logistics environment. So if it sounds like something that you're trying to, take apart and see how, AI and automation could help you and your organization benefit, we'd definitely like to, speak with you. Any example that Joe or I give you here, think of it as, just an idea, because we can't execute on all of these, but it could be a little bit different in your environment. Another one that we've seen is, for manufacturing, we can look at goods on a belt, but also maybe some of the discard material that comes off of it that needs to be removed. Joe and I were talking to a customer that's trying to use robots to remove bins, because at some of the manufacturing plants, some of the scrap material gets put into a bin, and they manually have to understand when these bins need to be emptied. And what their goal is to have a camera as a sensor where a model is released to teach the system what a full bin looks like. And when that bin's full, to have a robot move that bin. But in food and beverage, that could also be, understanding when a garbage bin's overfilled. We can't staff enough to make sure that these are, regularly emptied, because that can't be someone's full-time job, but maybe send an alert to the back office to check bin number 25 in a theme park. So the use cases are really infinite, and think of it as something that is tedious and manual, and we can help create a model and turn a camera into a sensor to make your lives a little bit easier. Thanks.
James, do you have any questions for?
Yeah. So I was going to say it's a super useful, interesting kind of use cases there. Things you don't even think about, and until I guess you're in that scenario yourself, you're not gonna think about it. But coming to you guys is the first port of call by the sounds of it. I guess the question from my side here is I would think that some of these characteristics of these spaces, do they make cloud even more important to solving these problems? What role does cloud play in all of this?
Yeah, I can start there. Like, I think the reality is without cloud connectivity, you can't deliver new updates to those models in an effective way, right? So you could maybe start with a camera that you teach, like that this line has stopped, like one of my manufacturing customers. But then when you try and move that over to another line, it needs that new training, which means you start all over again from the beginning. And then that is all completely manual. Having the tools that are built in the Meraki cloud and Cogniac cloud just mean that you can now do this in an impactful way, seamlessly, with so much less resource. So when you decide that your project is ready to go from a science project to scale, well, now you can actually execute it. When I was talking to this company that has this problem with their manufacturing line, they walked me through it all. They talked about how great it works. And I said, so it doesn't work on 2 lines, does it? And they're like, no, it only works on 1. I'm like, of course it doesn't work on the second one. And they're like, how did you know? And I'm like, because you can't scale a science project. It's a science project. In order to scale this out, you need the right architecture underpinning it to deliver these outcomes, or you'll have to hire a team just to manage the compute, to manage the cameras, to manage the outcome. And it won't ever happen. And when I talked to the project manager, he looked at me and he's like, you guys really did it. I'm like, did what? And he's like, you really solved this problem. Like, you really thought about how to re-architect and solve this. He goes, now I just hope that your cameras aren't like $1 million. And I said, well, they're so reasonably priced, schools and retailers buy them. So like, that's the thing. You start to look at this really powerful technology that's cloud delivered and you go, well, that's nowhere near as expensive as I expected it to be, right? A lot of this looks like it's only available for the largest, highest end customers. But I have small business customers leveraging smart cameras and computer vision today, and they're getting the competitive edge on their larger enterprises that are paralyzed to move. And so I think like the power of the cloud democratizes this artificial intelligence and allows for anyone to be able to do this today. And I think that's the key here. Without the cloud, we're dead in the water. You don't no ability to do any of this. And I think it's like, it's beyond that too, right? It's not just office spaces. It's not just schools. It's about extending the value of a video to the rest of the audience and the rest of the business. If you think that there aren't computer vision projects happening in your business and you're in IT or physical security, you just don't know about them yet because the business is investigating. They've got needs and they're not talking to you guys because they go, oh, IT can't help me. Or they go, oh, physical security, they have no idea what they're doing when it comes to AI and computer vision. All they care about is, did I tap my badge or did someone follow me? And then the reality is there's so much value that these teams can be delivering into the business if they knew that this was possible. But instead, they often go off and do their own research, their own investigation, and they come back and they're like, well, can't we just use what you guys already bought for this? And then you have to be the bad guy and go, well, no, I'm sorry. Like, we can't because our system isn't capable of doing more. We need new system, new cameras, new servers to be able to do that. And that doesn't square well with the business. So imagine being able to offer more value on top of all of this. And that's really what this delivers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, you know, we've talked about quite a lot about the different areas that you've seen cameras being used for now. Are there any areas that particularly stick out to you as maybe really interesting, ones that you think are worth noting, that cameras being used outside of physical security?
Yeah, I think that there's one that just always comes to mind. One of my customers, fast food retailer, and they've got, 35,000 locations. And they have a problem with chicken nuggets. I don't know if you guys know that or not, but when you go through their drive-through and you order a 6-piece nugget and you get 5 pieces and you get home and you open that box, probably not very happy, are you? A little disappointed because now you got 5 instead of 6. But if you got 7 instead of 6, you're having a great day. But that franchisee, they just lost money on that transaction. The real deal is getting 6 nuggets in a 6-nugget container and delivering that outcome. And so they came to us and they were like, hey, we got our worldwide trade show in just a few weeks. We've been hard at work at solving this nugget detection problem using computer vision for years. And we are still struggling. We see you have these new cameras. Can you do anything? And we had just signed the agreement with Cogniac and brought that technology to the Meraki cameras. And I was shrugged my shoulders and I was like, yeah, sure. We can teach a Meraki camera to count nuggets. And so one of my engineers over the course of like a week ordered 450-ish chicken nuggets to feed him and his family. And they took pictures of the nuggets from all different angles and sides. And then the AI in the Cogniac platform took over. And within just a few days, that model was 98% accurate at detecting and counting chicken nuggets. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, what's the use case? So what? You can count nuggets. Well, they have a staffing problem too. And when you partner with companies like Rockwell that can build machine automation so that the nugget tray comes in, it gets filled, the camera counts the nuggets, and it gets dispensed to customer, all of a sudden you remove that human in the loop. That means that it's more accurate. That means that the product is delivered faster. And more importantly, the customer gets what they expect, right? There's no disappointments. There's no second trip back. And it's not just nuggets. One of my other fast food companies, they make pizza. They want to know about pepperoni distribution, burnt edges on crust. All of these things are important to their quality process. But like, it's not just fast food. It's anything that you need to measure and count. I think that that's where this technology becomes incredibly transformational.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah,
I'll add to what you said there, Joe. Oh, sorry. On those examples that Joe gave, the person who trained the model on them, he may be a networking SE, very intelligent on Meraki networks, however, not a data scientist. We're not looking for data scientists to build and train models. We have those people. To use our platform and run a model and train a model on the Meraki camera, you just need to know what a chicken nugget looks like and teach the system by labeling just a few boxes. And think about any asset. If a human can look at the footage and draw a box over it, we can train the system.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, very interesting. I'm very pleased that we managed to talk about one of my favorite foods on a physical security podcast. So webinar. So that's always nice. Staying on that subject, actually, we've got some questions from the audience that keep coming through. I know we've answered a few already, and I know, Joe, you did touch on this earlier. But what would you say are the top 3 analytics used by Meraki cameras in a retail environment?
It's always people counting. Like that's the first. Like I want to replace my retail NEX system with something that's more cost effective that I can get physical security outcomes out of too. Like that's always where retailers start. And then they're like, but now that I'm doing accurate people counting at the door, I'd like to also know in these zones how many people enter. And then we're like, all right, cool, can do that. And then it often is like A/B testing. And then there's some very specific things in retail, like grocery, right? Where it's gap analysis, it's product replenishment, heat mapping. So there's things like heat maps that come out of the box with the Meraki camera. One of my retailers, they sell fitness equipment. And one of the problems that they had was in one of their retail stores, their accessories were down 30% over their comparable retail stores in the environment. And so their visual merchandiser started looking into it, and they were like, I don't know what the problem is. They have the same assortment as the store that's 4 blocks away, and that one is selling through way better. So they looked at the heat maps that come out of the box on the Meraki smart cameras, and what they found was that one side of the store was really heavy. Lots of traffic on the left-hand side of the store, but the right-hand side had very, very little traffic. And when they actually went back and reviewed the video, what they found was that there's a merchandise planner in the very middle of the store that separates the right and left, and it was just 1 foot too far to the right. So the walking path on the right-hand side of the gondola was constrained. So people didn't go there. They looked at that, they called the store, they said, all right, move that 1 foot to the left. Within 1 week, those accessory sales were in line with all of the rest of the stores in the region. And more importantly, accessories drive 60% of the margin from that store, okay? So if you are down in your accessory business, that store isn't profitable anymore. So for them, it was about using some of the built-in tools to be able to understand how people were flowing. But from there, now they want to do like how many people use the bike, how many people are on the treadmill, how long do they dwell, do they finish a full class? These questions all start to come up once the business realizes the power of what a camera system can deliver. I saw one other question in there about what happens to that camera video data if a camera fails. I just want to touch on this because there are 2 things that we should all do when we're doing proper physical security deployments. Cameras should always have cross coverage. So you should always have more than one camera looking at your space so that you have redundancy and resiliency. So if one camera fails, you have several other cameras covering that space. If your camera fails and it's down to like a hardware failure, oftentimes the video can be fully recovered fully encrypted, just the camera gets connected to the dashboard and you can extract video. If it's physically damaged and destroyed, maybe it's burnt, maybe it's smashed, we would always recommend the IK10 Plus rated Meraki smart cameras for any ruggedized or outdoor environments. But if it is physically damaged, oftentimes we keep that sensitive storage media. It's on the underside in a protected housing. We have very, very few. I can only think of like a handful, less than 5 over the last 5 years of customers that have lost video footage from a Meraki camera system that they needed recovered by a third party. So it does happen, but like 0.0001% of the time.
Awesome, thank you. I've got a couple of quick fire questions as we've only got a few minutes left, if that's all right. So, Miranda, I think this is a question that we get a fair amount, and it's always sometimes a tricky one to answer, but I think there is an answer there. What would you say is the main difference between genuine AI solution and traditional video analytics?
Yeah, I mean, we are an AI platform. We aren't per se an analytics platform, right? We make incredibly accurate models, and as we're a platform, partners add value around it. So we have a lot of strategic partners that we work with in this space with Meraki to do so. So we aren't really an analytics platform as much of we are an AI platform used to build really great computer vision models. So whereas a lot of the analytics platforms will go after specific use cases, you can do any asset, and we'll give you the data to integrate into your POS, whatever that may look like.
Perfect. Joe, I've got one for you here. How do more regulated industries, such as maybe banking or critical infrastructure or even government, keep in line with security and data protocols that they might have when using a cloud-based system, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to depend on the organization, the country's regulatory requirements. We sell in 179 countries worldwide, our Meraki smart cameras and sensors. Some countries, their governments are a hands-off approach to cloud managed anything, right? If the data doesn't reside in their country, it's a no-go. And that's okay. We qualify out of those opportunities. And over time, as the technology value shift continues and they start to see the value you can get from cloud, they become more and more open. But we've been doing cloud managed devices for 15 years, guys. Like, we are the longest standing, oldest at this. And we've been doing it a really long time. Our cloud is globally distributed. We have data centers in the EU, in Frankfurt, in Munich, and all over the world. So it's one of those pieces that some customers, cloud isn't going to be the right fit for today. And that's okay. Like, we know that. We're not trying to address 100% of the use cases and 100% of the market. We're going after the 80% that just want to make life a little easier and get a lot more value out of their equipment than they're getting today. And for our partner community to be able to simplify and deploy faster and more efficiently. So, like, there will always be those corner cases that we're not going to have the solve for, and that's okay. We're completely good with that.
Perfect. Final question for you both, and I'll give you 20 to 30 seconds each to answer this one, if that's all right. What is the use case that you two are most excited about that best demonstrates what Cogniac and Meraki can do together?
I'll go first on this. I think the work that we're doing in rail will save lives. And any time that we can build solutions that help people's safety and security, that help prevent accidental death, like, that is the most important thing that we are about. So I'd say the great work in rail has been incredible. Miranda, you?
Yeah, no, I was actually going to start with rail, but I also think that, our partnership with Meraki is so new, right? Cisco invested in our Series B1 last October, and there's so much exciting announcements to come in the near future that I think we haven't even scratched the surface on the most exciting ones yet. And rail is a huge opportunity. So we're really looking for the next ones. And I'm always hesitant to give it one use case because I like people to think about their environment. So yeah, we'd love to have that discussion with anyone who thinks maybe applicable to them.
Fair enough. Thank you both. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you to obviously Joe and Miranda. Really appreciate your time and expertise on today's topic and for answering all those questions. Some really interesting points raised. I think there's little doubt that digitization is transforming almost every aspect of the way businesses and organizations work. And I don't think the the physical security sector is in any way missing out on that. It's very much part of it. And it's been happening for some time. I think the pandemic might have accelerated some of this process, but the technology now available to support cloud-based platforms and AI and analytics and all of that kind of stuff is becoming more prominent than ever, I think. If anyone would like to get in contact with the speakers to discuss things in more depth, or we didn't get time to answer your questions for any reason, please see the speaker details in the widget at the bottom of the screen. And I'm sure they'll welcome any additional questions on such a pertinent topic for the industry at present. I know Miranda also mentioned a video at IFSEC that she showed, that they showcased at the show. We'll put that on the landing page of the webinar, and we'll try and put it in the email as well so that people can watch it and see for yourselves. Thank you to our sponsor, Cisco Meraki, as well as to everyone in the audience today. Always do appreciate your attention and participation. If you'd like to keep up to date with future webinars from IFSEC Global and on all the latest news in the industry, of course, be sure to sign up to our weekly newsletter on IFSEC Global and just keep us in your bookmarks. And now, within the next 24 hours, you will receive a personalized follow-up email with details and a link to today's presentation on demand. And obviously, feel free to invite your colleagues and your peers who might not have been available to listen to the event today. But that's all from today's session. Thanks for your time, everyone, and have a great day. Thank you.